Chapter 307 Blood Servant. When Han Li heard the young prince's voice, his complexion slightly changed, turning a bit pale. But when he slowly turned around, his expression returned to normal, the slightest panic couldn't be seen. Instead, a trace of a cold smile could be seen from the corner of his mouth. He coldly looked at those from the Black Fiend School and that bald Foundation establishment cultivator. Han Li's calm expression influenced the four friends of Ming Mountain, whose hearts grew slightly calmer. After giving each other a mutual glance, they all acted in concert and flew behind Han Li, standing in opposition against those from the Black Fiend School. "It's you. Aren't you that person from the Qin residence? You are a Foundation establishment cultivator?" When the young prince saw Han Li's appearance, he had an extremely astonished expression. Although that thin, shriveled man who stood beside him had remained silent, great surprise could be seen from his eyes. Only the large bald man who was rigidly staring at Han Li looked upon him with a solemn appearance. He suddenly said, "Be a bit careful. That person is a Foundation establishment cultivator and is also a layer higher than me. It is likely I'll need to lay out a black wind formation and draw assistance from the formation to capture him." Hearing the large bald man say this, the young prince didn't show any worry on his face. Instead, he asked with pleasant surprise, "Sir Blood Servant, if that's the case, the rewards for offering this person as a blood sacrifice for the schoolmaster's cultivation should be quite good, no?" When the large man heard this, he answered with a chuckle, "Of course. All of the Foundation establishment cultivators we captured so far were only at initial Foundation establishment. This person's blood essence is certain to be far greater than the previous few." With confirmation from the large bald man, the young prince greedily turned his head to look at Han Li and suddenly laughed heartily. "Good, very good. Regardless of the reason why your esteemed self has come here, don't think that you will leave this place alive. Lay down the black wind formation. Go." After the young prince stopped smiling, he shouted this with a cold expression and a stern voice. Those black-clothed individuals immediately took out large, jet-black flags and quickly flew around Han Li, surrounding him. Furthermore, they started to wave the flags in their hands. "You all just defend. Let me handle them." After Han Li indifferently said this to the four friends of Ming Mountain, his image became indistinct and disappeared from his original location without a trace. "Be careful." When the bald large man saw Han Li disappear, he loudly shouted from bewilderment, but it was already too late. Han Li appeared behind a black-clothed person in an instant. The cultivator who was just waving the flag had immediately stopped and blankly stood in place. Then without any warning, his head soon rolled onto the floor and blood fountained out of the headless body before falling to the floor. It was at the moment that the large bald man had just finished the last word of his shout. This scene caused the hearts of the other flag-holding cultivators to tremble. They were left stunned, not knowing what they should do. Han Li soon appeared behind another cultivator from thin air, and he promptly died with his head also rolling on the floor. Having seen this, the other black-clothed cultivators didn't dare to hesitate. They all stopped waving their black flags, and they slapped on their colorful defensive talismans and took out all sorts of defensive magic tools. But in the blink of an eye, two more black-clothed disciples in the process of preparing their defenses suffered Han Li's cruel attacks and unexpectedly turned to corpses. "Brat, you're courting death." When the large bald man saw this, he gave a deep roar and released strange black-red lights from his eyes. His entire body released a bloody radiance as he charged toward Han Li at an astonishing speed. Han Li took a cold look at the large man's stance along with the bloody sphere of light covering his body before taking a look at the black-clothed men looking at him with alarm from within their defensive light barriers. At that moment, their figures decisively shot over 100 meters away from the four friends of Ming Mountain. The large man charging through the air released a bestial roar. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately changed direction and continued to pounce toward Han Li and the others, but for some unknown reason, he didn't take out any magic tools. Seeing this, the second brother's mind moved. He saw an opportunity and immediately raised his hand, silently shooting out a green triangular thorn toward the large man's front. When the large bald man saw this magic tool fly toward him, his face turned into an evil grin. Not only did he not stop, but he also rushed toward to welcome it. The tall and thin second brother grew very happy and excitedly said, "This guy is out of luck. My magic tool is a fine high-quality magic tool. It will certainly make him." "Ah! How is this possible? My green-pointed thorn." Just as he started rambling, he was stunned by the scene before his eyes and involuntarily cried out. When this triangular thorn touched the blood-red light covering the large bald man, the blood-red light radiance seemed alive. It suddenly swept in the magic tool force, and no matter how much the magic tool struggled, it was unable to break free in the slightest. "Hee, you dare to make a show of such a minuscule thorn." The large man wildly laughed and extended a large blood-red hand, forcibly grabbing the triangular thorn. The green light of the magic tool in his grasp immediately scattered. It had thoroughly turned to scrap, completely devoid of spiritual chi. At this moment, not only did the four friends of Mang Mountain appear greatly fearful, but Han Li's heart also heavily thumped. This large bald man definitely didn't cultivate any common cultivation arts. It was most likely a top-grade devilish art like the ghost spirit sex young master. The large bald man didn't allow Han Li and the others to think further and arrived in front of them in an instant. A huge blood-red fist was raised and fiercely smashed against the light barrier that the four friends of Mang Mountain had jointly erected. Peng! The light barrier that four chi condensation cultivators had jointly released was left with a deep depression after just one strike and immediately grew very dark. The complexions of the four friends suddenly changed. Such a ferocious punch would likely turn common defensive magic tools into scrap metal. "Senior, could you?" The dark-faced old man turned his head in a hurry and wanted to see whether Han Li had some method to block the opponent. After all, against the opponent's attack, their combined defensive barrier was unable to take another hit. Without speaking, Han Li raised his hand and released a dazzling small white light shield. In the blink of an eye, it grew several times larger and steadily placed itself in front of their barrier, just in time to receive the large bald man's huge bloody fist. Bang! The ear-piercing sound of the man's great strike resonated through both heaven and earth. The nearby cultivators who didn't guard against the vibration lost their balance and nearly fell to the floor. The four friends of Mang Mountain were also off balance for a long while. The only ones whose expressions had remained the same were Han Li and the large bald man. Han Li expressionlessly looked at the white scale shield. He saw that although the shield had successfully endured the punch, there was slight depression on its originally flat and even surface. He couldn't help but be secretly fearful. Han Li clearly knew that how sturdy this white scale shield was and couldn't help but grow even more dreadfully wary of the large man. With this thought, Han Li patted his storage pouch without further hesitation. Suddenly, 2 streaks of black light and 6 streaks of gold light shot out simultaneously toward the large man without restraint. The grandeur of the raging torrent of howling released from the many top-grade magic tools greatly startled the large bald man. He couldn't help but reveal slight fear from his face. He wildly roared, and his body suddenly flourished with a great blood-red brilliance. A moment later, his entire body had been completely enveloped in blood-red radiance, turning into a huge blood-red sphere of light about 10 meters large that floated motionlessly in the air. Seeing this good opportunity, Han Li's gold beetle swarm blades and black dragon's grasps naturally did not show mercy and fiercely stabbed toward. What resulted, however, left Han Li feeling that something strange had occurred. Despite his magic tools chopping down on the sphere of light, the slightest movement hadn't occurred from within. Furthermore, his magic tools weren't able to penetrate more than half a foot into the sphere. This protective barrier-like defense had completely withstood his attack. Feeling slightly impatient, Han Li suddenly thought of something and hastily looked around him. The scene before him caused him to feel great danger. Under the command of the young prince and whom he suspected to be Steward Wang, the black-clothed men had become organized once more. They had faintly surrounded Han Li and the four friends and were waving the black flags in their hand with all their might. The black flags had already begun to hum a ghostly wail. A strange black fog began to continuously revolve around the black flags. This scene caused Han Li to recall the scene at the Spirit Stone Mine with the Azure Sun Devil fire that could destroy anything. As this summoning ceremony was quite similar to that of the Azure Sun Devil fire, how could Han Li allow them to complete it? With this thought, Han Li immediately pointed his hand and recalled the white scale shield. Then, without an explanation, he forced it into the dark-faced old man's hand and coldly said, "I'll let you temporarily use it. I'm going to dispose of the others first." Han Li's figure flashed and appeared outside of the protective barrier. Furthermore, the magic tools that were indiscriminately attacking the blood-red light sphere whistled through the air as they flew toward Han Li. As they continuously revolved around him, they continued to emit a hum.